Welcome, guys, back to the Grateful Living podcast. Today, I am thankful to have Dane Thomas with me today. Dane is an American author based in the state of Indiana. He has published three books of poetry: Black and Blue, Light in the Darkness, and In a World of Wishes. He also recently published his first children's book, Bart and the Stinky Nasty Fart. Dane, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show today. I
Of, course,
appreciate it.
of course. Thank you again. So take it back to the beginning for us, where you grew up, your family situation, and what type of kid you were.
So I grew up on a grain farm in Indiana. I was in 4-H for 10 years, which is kind of a youth program. They've got all kind of different activities and things that you can take, like woodworking, electrical. You can show animals, things like that. I really got into livestock when I was a kid, and we did showing and things like that. My dad and I now farm 1,000 acres, so I continue to stay on the family farm once I graduated from college. But a lot of things influenced me in my childhood. One thing that really influenced me, I think, was when I was in first grade, our school system decided to consolidate, and the elementary school that I went to, which, well, I guess it was more than an elementary, it was kindergarten through eighth grade. So it was kind of like an elementary and middle school, closed down. And a lot of the kids that I went to school with, we all got split up. And so I changed schools when I was in second grade. I started out at a new school. I did not know very many people, and I kind of had a rough time when I was doing that. It was kind of one of those things where it's tough when you're
Yeah. Oh
7
yeah.
years old and
Transitioning. Yeah.
you're transitioning and trying to make new friends and stuff. I always kind of felt out of place at that school. Um, I've just kind of felt like an outcast while I was there. I was there second grade through fifth grade, and then I went on to the middle school after that. But while I was there, I mean, I had friends and things like that, but I wouldn't say there was bullying or anything that went on. I just felt like I was out of place. Things kind of changed for me when I was in middle school. I was back together all this. So we had 5 elementary schools,
Yep.
and then they were all, everyone went to the same middle school. So sixth through eighth grade, we were all back together. I had a little bit, it was more back to normal. Um, I had friends again that were old friends that I ran into again. And high school was kind of the same way. We all went to the same high school. So I wouldn't say that I really had a lot going on in middle school and high school. Things kind of got pretty normal through those years. And I kind of have had a big plan when I graduated high school. I was going to go to college and work. I had started working at a farm equipment store when I was a junior in high school. And I used to set up new farm equipment that was coming in, that needed assembled. I'd service lawnmowers, things like that. And I wanted to stay on there when I graduated from high school and work throughout my college. So I had money to pay for college and things like that. Um, and my right after I graduated, my girlfriend and I at the time kind of split up my first week of college. So I had a really tough time with that because it was, it's one of those things where you think, like, when you're in high school, you're going to marry your high school sweetheart and things like
Yeah.
that. And I had a little bit of a rough time with that. And I kind of got into partying a lot
Yeah.
when I graduated from high school. Got into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not with the law, just with my parents.
Yeah.
Um,
See, a young
so
kid
I
just
kind
trying
of,
to figure things out.
yeah, so I would guess I was just the normal kid trying to live the college life of partying. And I guess that was a little bit of a wake up call for me. Um, I had a little bit of a wild time my freshman year in college, we'll put it that way. um, and I ended up going to a community college. So I lived at home when I was at the community college. I went there and got an associate's degree. Um, things kind of calmed down my sophomore year of my sophomore year of college. I was taking a lot of classes. I was actually working about a 50-hour a week job
Yeah.
my freshman and sophomore years of college.
Wow.
And I was a full-time student my second year. My first year, I think I took like 9 credit hours one semester and 12 the second. And then my second year, I ended up taking up to 15 or 16, I think,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
while I was still working. So
Wow.
I didn't
That's
have a ton
impressive.
of free time. I ended up getting really, really sick because I was just so stressed from work and then doing college. There was times I'd pull all-nighters to try to get my homework done, and it just really took its toll on me. And I ended up starting to black out my sophomore year, and no one could figure out why. And I ended up going to the doctor, and they found out that I was hypoglycemic, which is kind of like the opposite of being diabetic. So my blood sugar was kind of out of whack all the time, and I struggled with that, and I had to cut back. They said it was something that was kind of stress based, and I had to cut back my hours with work so I could finish out college. So I ended up graduating with a associate's degree from community college. I ended up going for business, and then I got minors in human resource and marketing. And then my goal was to kind of transfer over to this other college. They had a crossroads program with the community college that I went to, because the community college did not offer a bachelor's degree, they just
Yeah.
offered an associate's degree. But when I went over to the other school, apparently I had to sign up for the Crossroads program when I was a freshman, and I didn't do that. So I had 73 credits when I graduated. And when I went over to transfer my credits, only 30 of them transferred. So kind of threw a wrench into my life plans.
Yeah.
And I ended up starting to work for my parents at that time. I went back, and my dad and I farm 1,000 acres of corn, wheat, and soybeans. So I transitioned over to that job at the time, and things were, I guess, pretty normal, I guess, for the most part. And I ended up taking about a 3-year break from college. And then one day, the university that I ended up going to, the second university I ended up going to, was a Christian. It was kind of a private Christian school. They called me up one day, said they had a new program, and it was an accelerated program that if you came in with an associate's degree, it was about 2 years to get a bachelor's degree. And I guess I went through another wild phase at that point.
Yeah.
Um, I had another relationship that kind of took its toll on me in between those times, and um, I decided that would be the best thing for me to go to more of a Christian private school uh, to help me kind of get my life back on track, as well as finish out my schooling. So I ended up going there, and I still continue to work a 50-hour a week job. And I finished out a bachelor's degree in a little over 2 years. It was good. I think it was really good for me. Kind of got my life back on track. Um, and I ended up graduating with a double major in marketing and business. So I got a bachelor's degree out of that. And kind of in the mix of all that, I ended up buying a house
Nice.
that
Congratulations.
I completely remodeled. It was kind of a house in distress, I guess you could say, that it was someone had built it back in 2005, and they ended up losing it to the bank. The guy had went into the military, and his wife kind of found someone else while he was over in Iraq. And so the house was just a disaster. It was a log cabin that was not finished correctly. So when I bought that, I bought it in the summer of 2013, and I spent 6 months redoing the house while I was in school and working a full-time job. So it
Yeah.
was kind of a lot, kept me
Yeah.
busy, kept me out of trouble. So I ended up doing that. Moved in, I think, January 2014. Um, and I ended up graduating from college with my bachelor's from the Christian University in late 2014. It was like August of 2014. Right after I ended up graduating, I took over a company in Columbia, well, the place where I'm from. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say but my hometown, I took over a company. So I was president of a company. It was elected position.
Wow.
I served on the board, and I ended up taking over right after I graduated it. So I graduated in August, took over the company in September, and ran that for 6 years. So I just finished that up here in September. So I took over that, got myself into a lot of things. It's kind of a political company. They deal with local government and even up to the state government. It is a national company. And I ran just in my hometown, my county, and it was very hectic. It
Yeah.
was stressful, and I didn't really know what I was walking into at the time when I took over, but I dealt with everything from the school corporation to the Indiana DOT. Which for those of you that don't know, that's the Department of Transportation.
Yep.
Um, I dealt with a lot of things in that. It was a great learning experience, but it was so much stress. And kind of in the meantime, there was a lot of things in my personal life that were going on that just kind of put me in a downward spiral.
All right. Before you get into that, if I can, let's just 1 second. So, uh, you grew up on a family farm.
Yes.
Talk about what that was like. So, are your parents own it?
Yes.
Okay. How
Um,
what is that? Because a lot of us don't come from a farming background. Talk about what type of things they grow, crops and stuff like that.
so we did when I was growing up. My dad did. We had a hog farm, and
Okay.
we also had grain. So we did corn, wheat, and soybeans, and then we also did the hogs. And like I said, I was a 10-year member of 4-H, so we did some show animals and things like that. We ended up quitting in the hog business when I graduated from high school. So that was back in 2007.
Yeah.
The show animals, I used to show Holstein steers and feeder calves, and then pigs as well. And then I took all kinds of different 4-H projects from like woodworking to electric. I took tractor driving, things like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was a good experience growing up on a farm. There was a lot of things that I learned while working there, because I worked on the farm my entire childhood. Um, it's a great way to learn responsibility and great work ethic. I mean, we always baled hay and straw in the summer, so I learned how to work hard right from the get go. I guess one thing, my dad was the first generation farmer. He started his own farm. So my childhood, we kind of grew up poor. So I didn't have like the name brand clothes when I was growing up and things like that. Um, I didn't really have any of that until I started my own working and making my own money. So, but it was a great place to grow up. There's always things to do. We had go-karts and dirt bikes and four-wheelers and all that kind of stuff. So,
How hard has it been for him, owning your parents owning a farm? Obviously prices go up and down, and then, in recent times, like, you know, certain countries may not buy from the US or things like that. How has it been stressful, or how has that process been for them?
yes, it's extremely stressful. I mean, you never know what your income is going to be. Now, my mom works as well. She has kind of a government job, and she works in, it's technically kind of a branch of the military that she works for. So she always had a steady income with her job, but my dad's income fluctuated from year to year. I mean, it all depends on the crop prices and how the economy is. And farming is kind of like the bottom of the totem pole because you are a price taker. You don't really have the option of saying, hey, I want to raise the prices. I mean, it's all kind of controlled by the government and things like that. So it's tough. I mean, it's always stressful. Part of my income now actually comes from the farm since I work for my parents as well. And it's tough to not know what you're going to make at the end of the year and know that you have no control over the prices and things like that.
As these in recent years, there's been a lot of, tariff back and forth with countries like China and things like that. Has that affected you guys at all?
Yes. So when Trump got elected, there was a lot of issues with the tariffs because of taxes and things like that. And he ended up giving some help to the farmers for him screwing up the tariffs. And now things are kind of on the uphill side. The past, I would say, probably 4 or 5 years have been really tough. The crop prices have been really low. And now things are just now going up. And I mean, that's part of farming. It's the fluctuation in that income, and you have to plan ahead. I mean, that's all there is to it. You have to plan for those years when, whether you have a drought or whatever the case may be, whether the crop prices are down, you always have to plan ahead and have some money saved up just for in case of a bad year. So
Yeah, yeah. What is it like? I don't know if you've made the commitment to them to be, the second generation of it, but how is it being a part of the family business? Because obviously you have the personal relationship with them, but then there's also, you need to get the work done as well. How do
it
you
can
manage
be
those?
tough at times.
Yeah.
I'll admit that it's tough at times. I mean, it's just like if you would work for your parents, it's one thing if you're, living with them or whatever, but when you actually work for them and you are an employee of theirs, it's a lot different. My dad's kind of a perfectionist, and sometimes we can really butt heads. But for the most part, we get along pretty well. It's just him and I. My mom helps once in a while, and my sister's around a little bit. So um, it's like I said, it is a family farm, but it's kind of my dad and I are the only ones that are there every day. So
you know a- as you think about it, what's, for you, what's the best part of being a part of the farm, and what's the hardest part?
um, probably the part I enjoy the most is being outside. I don't have to sit at a desk and push papers all day long, and I enjoy that part of it. There are jobs that I don't like to do around the farm, um, which is going to come with every job. So I would say that's probably the worst part. There are jobs here and there that I don't like doing, um, and that's just part of any job. So, but I do enjoy being outside all day, and I'm never doing the same thing. It's not like I'm sitting behind a computer every day of the week. I do kind of do. I have a big variety of things that I do. I work on the equipment. Sometimes I'm out working in the fields. Um, I'm doing accounting some days. So it's kind of a very. I mean, there's a lot of things that kind of go into it, but at the same time, I'm not. I'm never doing the same thing 2 days in a row.
Yeah. For you, especially given what you do now as a published author of four different books, do you remember, like, when your interest for writing came? Was it something you've always had since you were a kid? You always journaled or something like that? Or has it come later in your life as an adult?
It kind of, I guess my first interest in writing was a teacher in middle school. I had a teacher in middle school that made us write. We had to keep a journal for her class, and that was part of the requirement. You had to write in it about, I think it was every day, or you had to do so many writings per week. And that was kind of what sparked my interest in writing, but I never really, I guess, took anything away from that. After that class was over, I just stopped writing, and then I didn't pick up with the writing again until about 2017. I started writing that year. Um, and the reason why I had started writing again was because I was going through a really dark time in my life, and that was kind of my way to vent, was writing things down. So it was a great way for me to compile my thoughts, and it really helped me get through a difficult time.
Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that build up? I know you started the Instagram account in 2017. So maybe what led to, obviously it seems like there were some things going on in your personal life prior to that.
Yes. So a lot of things kind of happened all at once around that time frame when I started writing, when I opened my Instagram account and things like that. Uh, there was so I had graduated from college in 2014. I had another relationship break around that time, and I guess after my first relationship in high school, that was a really bad break. I kind of decided after my little wild phase that for every time I would split or have a relationship break or something like that, I would try to do something positive in my life. So after one of my relationships ended, I learned how to play guitar. And then after another relationship ended, that's kind of what pushed me to write the books. I had a very toxic relationship that ended um, towards the end of 2016. And shortly after that ended, my aunt passed away from cancer the next
Sorry.
month.
Sorry to hear that.
And then in the same month, my high school best friend passed away from cancer.
Wow. Okay.
And then, so that was November and December that all that happened. And then in January, we moved my grandpa into an Alzheimer's unit. And I was very close with my grandparents. I spent a lot of time with them growing up. And that was pretty hard on me as well. And then my sister dropped a bomb in February that she was getting a divorce, which also impacted me because like I said, my family's very tight knit. We all kind of live in the same area. It was just a lot all at once. And then in March, I had my grandpa on the other side of the family fall and break his hip, and my grandma had a heart attack. So it was a lot to cope with all at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of what really pushed me into writing. Um, I feel like with my sister's divorce, that really took its toll on my family because it was just a really bad situation, and it was about I think it took over a year and a half maybe to settle the whole thing, and she had two kids as well. So my family was very heavily involved in that, and with my grandpa being in the Alzheimer's unit, that was kind of a lot. We went to visit every week, and it's hard to watch someone kind of slide down that path because they never get any better. So that was something that was really hard for me to watch, and writing was just kind of my way to vent and cope with it. And so I thought to myself, if I'm going through all these things, there's probably other people out there going through these things too. So that's kind of when I decided to open the Instagram account, and I never really told anyone from my community right off the bat. I actually just shared with my community here recently in the last probably month. It was just it was really personal. The things I was writing at the time was really, really personal to me, which everything I write is personal to me. So, um, I actually did not start sharing with even friends or anything right off the bat. It was kind of just like a journal that I kept online. And then later down the road is when I kind of shared that with my friends, like really close friends. And then, I mean, we're almost 3 years later, and I just now finally share with the community.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. And you have 55,000 followers. So
yeah.
it's
Yeah. And it's not people that I know. I can assure
yeah.
you that.
Yeah. That's amazing. So I guess, you started the Instagram account. What then pushes you to write your first book, which I think was Black and Blue?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I started the Instagram account, and I didn't know that anything would ever come of it. I just kind of started it, and I wanted to see where it went. And so I started it up, and quickly gained followers, and I got a lot of interaction with my account. So by the time I had gained about 10,000 followers, I'm like, well, I have a lot of information here. I have a lot of things written. Um, I might as well just go ahead and finish a book, start it and finish it. So that's what I did. I started writing a book, and I think I really worked on that one hard. I worked on it. I think I had that one completed in about 4 months, and published it. And when I published, I really did a lot of research because I'm one of those people that overthinks everything, and I wanted to make sure I was making the right decision. So when I published, I decided to self-publish, so I hold all the rights to all my books. For someone that was not really big into writing, it's really tough to get a publisher, or, well, I wouldn't say it's tough to get a publisher, but it is tough to get a good publisher. Um, and I didn't really know that much about. I mean, I went to school for business and marketing. I didn't really know anything about writing as far as publishing and, or getting an agent or anything like that. So I kind of wanted to just do it on my own. That way I could do it any way I wanted. And it turned out really well. So I published another book in 2018, and that one was kind of a little bit different. That book took me a while to get done. Well, actually, that one didn't. That one I got it started and finished, and then my third book, "In a World of Wishes," was the one that I really struggled to finish.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, for people that follow your content online and have read your books, these are deeply emotional subjects. Like you can feel it,
Yeah.
And so I guess for me, what's your process with writing? Because I mean, obviously you're working a lot on the farm, and things like that. Like, do you have to be in a certain reflective mood, or does it just come naturally? Like, what's your writing process?
So it just comes naturally, and I'm not the type of person that sits down and writes every day. I am extremely busy, so the only time I ever write is if I'm feeling inspired. I do try to write something, a few times a week, but I don't just sit down and write. Some people try to sit down and write, and I don't know how they do that. Um, I could never just sit down and write on command. That's just not
Yeah,
who I am as a person. So I've got to be around something that's inspiring me or things like that. So
yeah. And I guess for the you know the people out there that uh maybe want to self-publish, what were some of the things that you did right? And are there things that you're 4 books in, are there things that you've learned in that process and have changed and adapted to you know be a lot better?
when I first started, I thought it was going to be a really easy process, and it's not. It's very tough to make it as a writer, which is why I work multiple careers. But writing the book is the easy part. Writing the book and publishing it is easy, but where it actually gets really hard is when you're marketing it. It costs a lot of money if you pay advertising companies to market it, which is why I have my Instagram and my social media, because that's a huge part of my marketing. But if you actually go out and try to market it, and I mean, if I didn't have the social media, I probably wouldn't sell any books. It's just very, very hard. And I was not prepared for that at all. I thought, well, I'll just publish this book and, it'll sell and I won't have any problems. And it's definitely been a difficult road, publishing books and getting them to sell,
Yeah.
especially for my first three books, because they're kind of in a market that doesn't exactly apply to everyone. Not everyone wants to go out and buy those books. It's just a lot of people read it online and things like that. They don't actually go out and purchase the book, which is why I kind of switched over to children's books here recently. So
For you, do you have other people read the poems or things like that prior to, or do you uh just keep it as what you've written?
I kind of just keep it as what I've written. I do edit the books and things before I actually publish. Usually my process is I write the entire book out and then I'll have people read it. So I usually have my mom go through and read it, and my
Yeah.
grandma, another one that I trust, that goes through and reads it for me, and then I take what they say, as far as, if there's any errors or things like that, and I bring them back, and I usually go through books probably 150 times at least. I read through them over and over and over to make sure there's no mistakes, because that's like my biggest fear, is publishing something with a mistake, which has happened before. So
Yeah.
I'm really paranoid on that, because I don't want to publish a book and then people are buying this product that has a mistake in it. So um, that's kind of my process. Is once I get everything written out, I order a rough draft, so they actually have like a physical book that they can just write in, or you know post sticky notes in or whatever to correct my errors. And then I'll go through, and I usually order 2 to 3 proofs before I actually publish. So
Yeah. Sounds good. What made you get into children's book?
with that book, I kind of decided that I wanted to do something fun that everyone could enjoy. The poetry books aren't something that really relates to everyone. I mean, I feel like there's things that everyone can relate to in them, but it's not something everyone wants to sit down and read. So with the children's book, I just wanted something that, anybody could enjoy, from a kid that's 5 to, someone that's 90 years old. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. It's been a really great book. No matter what age you are, people think it's hilarious. So
Yeah.
I'm really happy with that book, as how it turned out. And I I think I'll keep writing children's books. So
Yeah. You know, as you talked about, prior to writing these books, there was a lot going on in your personal life. For people struggling with mental health, is there anything you want to share about, maybe, how I don't know if you want to, but how low you've been, and now seeing all the light that you've shared 4 books later, how thankful you are, you know, that you didn't let those low moments get to you?
Sure. So there was obviously a lot of low moments around a certain time period in my life. And I think writing is what helped me more than anything. It's a great way to kind of compile your thoughts and things like that. And that was probably my lowest point when I was publishing my second book. I was really struggling with those type of things. I had There was a lot of things that happened. I mean, I didn't really finish telling you about that, but after my sister announced her divorce, my best friends kind of announced their divorce as well.
Right.
So it was kind of two back-to-back divorces. My friend group kind of split after that. Um, and everyone kind of went their own separate ways, which I think had to do with a lot of different things. But um, yeah, writing kind of was my way to vent. And it's just one of those things where you've got to keep pushing forward, because no matter what you do, you're not going to get out of that low spot unless you move forward. So, my second book, I'll actually share what's on the back. I'm going to have it right here. So here's the
Yeah.
second. And the poem on the back of it is: the bird with broken wings still sings, the tree with broken limbs still grows, the person with a broken heart still loves, for even though we are all broken in different ways, we must continue on. And that was kind of one thing that kept me going. One of my friends, uh, she had an eating disorder, and when she went to, she kind of had to go away for therapy for a couple months. And one thing that they told her when she was in therapy was that you pick a quote and you read it every day, and you kind of use that to help you get through your difficult times. And that was my quote to help me kind of get through my difficult times. Um, and like I said, I think writing was kind of my saving grace during that time period, because it was my way to vent and my way to kind of cope and learn how to compile my thoughts. So
Yeah. you talked a little bit about being in some tough relationships.
Mhm.
As you look back on those, you know, what do you? I don't know if you can do this, but would you give yourself some advice on, you know, should you have left them earlier, or should should you have handled things different? I mean, um, because that's traumatic, right?
Yeah.
And that lingers on. It's someone you've let in and shown you've opened yourself to. Um, any thoughts on that?
So I guess I can say now that everything's said and done, I'm glad that I had to go through those bad relationships, because if it wouldn't have been for those, I don't think I would have pushed myself to write the books. That was kind of one thing that, like I said, after every one of my bad relationships, or after every one of my relationships ended, I tried to do something positive instead of just rolling back into that downward spiral of going out and partying all the time and things like that. So I'm glad that I had to go through those. I wish some of them wouldn't have been as painful as what they were. Um, but I don't think there's a lot of things I could have done differently. It just, a lot of them weren't the right time. Some of them just, I mean, they weren't ever going to work out. So um, I don't think I would do anything really differently. It's just I met the right person maybe at the wrong time. Um, for people that are going through relationships, it's kind of I guess my theory was, if it's meant to be, it'll work itself out. So, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, yeah. And your best friend dying of cancer. Uh, you know what? I mean, how was that process? I just can't even imagine the pain.
So that was kind of a rough process for me. Um, like I said, we were pretty much inseparable all through high school and even into college and things like that. And he ended up passing away at age 27. Um, and it was tough. Uh, we weren't as close when he passed away. Um, but like I said, we were inseparable for years. And then we did, I guess, when we went to college, it's tough when you're going to two different colleges, and things like that. And then he ended up getting married and having a kid, right prior to that. I think his kid was maybe 2 or 3 when he passed away. But yeah, it's just a very tough process and to heal from that. And a lot of what I've written in my books, there are things that have to do with that. There's things that have to do with my relationships as well in those books. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that you can't dwell on it, because it's something that you can't change no matter how hard you try. You can't bring that person back. You can't do anything about it. There's nothing physically you can do. Um, so I guess my theory was, I always thought that I didn't want to dwell in it, because my friend would not want to see me that way. He'd want me to do something great with my life. So that's kind of also what pushed me forward out of that kind of rut that put me in. Um, was the fact that I knew he would never want me to sit there and dwell and, you know, be unhappy over something that I couldn't change.
Yeah. And you've also been open about dedicating a lot of your life and your work to in memory of your grandfather. Do you want to just talk about what he means to you and things like that?
Yeah. So my grandpa was a one of a kind person. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up, which kind of brought my love of reading. My grandparents on both sides of the family always used to take us to the library, and they'd always read to us. And that was something that was great about my childhood. I always remember, that's something that I always remember, is being at my grandparents' house and hanging out with my cousins and having my grandpa and grandma read to me. And my grandpa was a school teacher, and a lot of his life was dedicated to, teaching people and pushing them to do better in their life. And that's kind of how he always treated me as well. He always pushed me to do better and things like that. So that's kind of why I dedicated the book to him, is because he'd always pushed me to, he'd always supported me in whatever I chose to do, no matter what career it was, whether it was writing or the farm or any of that stuff, or even when I was president of the company. He always pushed me to do those type of things, and he was always happy and supportive of what I was doing. So that's kind of why I dedicated the book to him.
Yeah. As you look at that time period, right? You lost an aunt, um, your best friend, your grandfather goes into an Alzheimer's unit. Your sister's going through a divorce. Your best friend. I mean, it's even just as an outsider, I'm like, I don't know how you dealt with it, because I'm just stating the facts. Um, as you look back on it, do you, for say someone else is going through, this type of loss after loss and trauma and things like that, are there any pieces of advice on getting through that time period and not letting, you know, all that, toughness and all that darkness, you know, overconsume you?
One thing I've always told people is when they're going through a dark time, you've got to pick something that makes you happy and focus on that. So that's kind of why after my breaks in relationships, I'd always choose something to focus on, whether that was playing the guitar or, writing books or whatever. You've got to choose something that you're interested in that makes you happy and focus on that. And it's something different for everyone. I can't sit here and say there's one particular thing you need to do. A lot of times when I was going through some bad things, I use exercise as a way to kind of relieve my stress. I ended up working out for a while, a time period. I was working out every single day,
Yeah.
um, which has changed since then. But
Yeah. Yeah. I also am curious, throughout the podcast, you've shown a tremendous amount of work ethic, right? In college, you were working 50 hours a week and taking 16 credits of classes. You know, where does that drive come from? Like, how do you, you know, I mean, some people listening might not even be able to take the 50 hours of work, let alone the school as well.
so, like I said, I kind of always grew up. When I grew up, we were poor. My dad had started his own business, and all the money he was making kind of went back into the farm. So I didn't really have a lot of things. I mean, I had a great childhood, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I didn't really have the name brand clothes and things like that. And when I got my first job when I was 16, I kind of changed that. I went on a buying spree, and kind of it was great to actually have the feeling of having a little bit of money, whether that was to buy a car or to buy, clothes or buy whatever I wanted at the time. And that's kind of what pushed me to do all these different things, was because I always wanted to be successful. I didn't want to be back in that place. Um, and I mean, I worked a full-time job all through college so I could pay my college off as I went. I graduated with no college debt, because I was working all those hours. And that's one thing I always strive to do, was I always wanted to be with no, I didn't want to ever have any debt. And I've lived that way pretty much my entire life. So um, it was just, yeah, that's just kind of what pushed me, was I wanted to be better than what I came into the world being. I didn't want to be
Yeah.
poor. I didn't have to be rich, but I wanted to be successful in my eyes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. In that same vein, how do you turn off? How do you relax? Because you're working full time, you're writing. Um, what are some things you do to just? Are you able to relax?
I don't have a lot of time to relax.
Okay.
I was working three jobs because, like I said, I work on the farm. I do that 6 days a week. My normal hours are 7:30 to 5, Monday through Saturday. Um, my job as president of the company, that was a lot of nights. I sat in a lot of meetings. I take phone calls during the day, things like that. Sometimes I had meetings during the day. I kind of set my own hours though, so that's how I manage that. And then the writing is another thing. I kind of set my own hours. Right now, if I'm not actually writing, the only thing I'm really doing, I do my social media. I kind of manage my all of my own social media and as well as do the marketing. So, I mean, if I get extremely busy with other things, I don't have to do the book. I don't have to do any of the writing stuff right now. I can kind of manage that as I need to. And then I'm also picking up another job in January for the government. So,
Yeah.
and I do a little bit of brand repping here and there, but that's kind of on my own schedule too. So,
Yeah. Uh, one of the things that a lot of young kids, and hopefully for the right reasons, but they want to be Instagram influencers, right? And they look at you and 55K and they're amazed, right? Has there been, do you have any pieces of advice for anybody that wants to, be an influencer in a good way, the way, you are?
you have to put in a lot of work to get there. I mean, that this is over the course of 3 years for me to build that up. And I'm kind of just building up my brand and making myself known in the world. And that I feel like that's kind of what I had to do, or like I said, I wouldn't be probably selling any books. It is tough. It takes a lot of time to do that. I wouldn't say that it's the most profitable thing. If you want to be an influencer, you've got to have something you're working towards, because just having a lot of followers is kind of pointless unless you're working towards something, as far as I'm concerned. But it can be tough at times because you will have those people that'll, you know, say awful comments to you or whatever. So you've got to be kind of prepared for that. You've got to take the good with the bad. And I mean, I've had people say awful things to me, and it's usually people that don't follow you, and they're just kind of the people that don't have anything to do. So they sit there and write hateful things on people's Instagram. And
Yeah.
it can be tough to deal with if you're not prepared for it and you're not aware that that's going to happen. I mean, everybody gets that. Everybody that's any kind of influencer gets that. I mean, you look at celebrities and people say hateful things to them all the time. So, I mean, if you do want to have a big account and a lot of following, you that is something you have to deal with.
Yeah. What's been the, I guess, the best part of all of this? Like, I can, is it been a celebrity sharing a, one of your quotes on their story, or what's been the most rewarding part of this journey so far?
I think the most rewarding part for me is I'll have people reach out to me and say, I had one lady reach out and say, "Oh, my husband died. Thank you for helping me through this. I love your quotes."
Yeah.
A lot of people reach out to me and say, "Hey, love what you have to say. It's really my favorite part of the day is waking up and reading your quote." Things like that. That's what's important to me. It's not. I mean, it's definitely not about the money because I'm not getting rich doing this by any.
Yeah.
Um, but it's things like that, like a nurse helps people in the health industry, and a doctor helps people, and you have all these different people that help people. Well, that was something I liked. Um, I I thought I probably in another life I could have been a counselor or something, but I didn't have my college plan set out correctly, I guess, for that. So um, I guess that's what's important to me. I like getting those kind of messages that say, "Hey, you've really helped me get through a difficult time," and things like that, and because that's what it's there for.
Yeah. I think um one of the things that I really like about you is, and hopefully nobody takes this, advantage of this, but you reshare a lot of, on your story, a lot of people resharing yours.
Mhm.
Um, when did that start? That's just such a cool thing to do.
I just wanted people, which I try to. message people back. If people do message me, I do try to message them back, or if they share my stuff, I try to share it back just to say kind of thank you. And I guess that gives a personal touch to my writing. I like that personal touch because a lot of times you don't get that. If you do comment on someone's stuff that has a lot of followers, you don't get that personal connection with them. And that's something that's really important to me because I want everyone to feel like they're someone in the world, whether that's me commenting back to them or answering the DM that they sent me or whatever. I do try to answer as many of those as I can just because I want people to feel like they're important.
As a male, I think that often we're told to kind of, have it all figured out and not really show emotions. You mentioned that this year you let a lot of your internal like community know about what you're doing online. Has the reception at all been, have your male friends been like, oh, that's kind of weird that you're being so emotional or share? I mean, have you received anything like that?
No, I did have some issues with some of my friends, which I didn't share this when I was sharing about it. But there were some jealousy issues with my friends when I started writing, which is kind of the reason why I never told anyone. I kind of wanted to feel out the situation before I just, drop that bomb on everyone. So I kind of felt out the situation with my really close friends and family. That was really all I told about writing. And I kind of noticed that people were growing more distant in my friend group. And I think there was a lot of jealousy issues. And it got to the point where everyone was allowed to tell about their life and things in the friend group. But I never really brought up any of my writing or my books or anything like that because I think there was a big jealousy issue, and I just kind of noticed people treating me differently. And I guess that's why I didn't want to share with the community right off the bat because I didn't know how people would react. I've dealt with some people that have been a little bit overbearing online as far as messaging me nonstop all the time, and I did
Yeah.
not want that in my community. My first house that I had was out in the middle of a woods in the country with no way to put security up. So I recently moved a year ago and now I have security and things like that. So I was a little bit fearful of how people would react just from some of the reactions I've gotten online. I didn't want people breaking into my house. I didn't want to be
Yeah.
like taken for status movie, anything like that. Like you never know with the way the world is today, how people are going to react to things like that. And so I just kind of kept it to myself and I didn't really want to be, I didn't want to be, I guess I wanted to be humble about the situation. I didn't want to be like, oh, in your face, I'm writing and I've published these books and things like that. So really actually the only book that I think the community knows about is my children's book because that's
Oh,
something
okay.
relate to everyone. The other books are still a little bit, that's my personal life. I don't know that I want the whole community knowing about my personal life. So
Yeah.
that I still haven't shared with the community. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like a really personal level. It's just like if you would write a journal or something, would you really want to show that to the whole world?
Yeah.
I mean, it never really bothered me to show people that I don't know, like the people online that follow me on Instagram. I don't really know any of those people on a personal level, but to show, people I've grown up with and went to school with, that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. As you go forward, uh, what do you hope what's the perfect vision for your life as an author?
I didn't really have a perfect vision, I guess.
Okay.
I'd like to write a variety of books, which is kind of what I started on. I did the 3 poetry books and then I kind of moved on to a children's book. I'd like to write and publish a couple more children's books. I'd like to do a comic book and a chapter book at some point, but it just kind of depends on how crazy my life is at the time.
Yeah.
But I just want to kind of have a variety. So I have something for everyone. I think it's a great accomplishment for those people that are interested in writing to even, get a book out there and publish it. That's an accomplishment in itself. So, I was happy with just being able to publish a book and get it out there and, share it with the world. So that was one thing that was really important to me. And as far as the future, I mean, I don't really have any set goals for myself. I'd like to continue publishing books, but I don't have a deadline, I guess. I guess my deadline in the beginning, I kind of set a goal for myself to publish a book for every 10,000 followers on Instagram, but that got a little bit overbearing to try to write that many books. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Dane, we covered a good amount. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't?
I just want to say to people that are, interested in writing or, whatever your dream job may be or your whatever that may be. I think that it's important that you go for it no matter what your circumstances are, because I would have never, if you would have asked me 10, 15 years ago, I would have never told you that I'd write a book. Like I said, I did not go to college for this. It was just one thing that I kind of was good at in school. It was probably my best subject in school was my literature classes. And I would say that, sometimes you don't realize maybe what your purpose is or what you're great at until it comes later in life, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, I guess I guess one thing that I learned growing up, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a pilot, and that kind of crashed and burned, for lack of better words. But anyways, I wanted to be a pilot, and then I went to business school because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I guess when I was in high school, everyone pushed you to kind of decide your entire life when you're in high school. And, when you're graduating, you're supposed to know what you want to do with your life. And you don't have to have it all planned out because life is so unexpected that, I mean, tomorrow could be something completely different. And I mean, life changes in a matter of seconds and can at any moment. So you don't need to have a life plan. And I feel like there's so much pressure on young kids to have their entire life planned out, whether that's, college choices, job choices, relationships, marriage, kids, whatever that may be. I think that our society puts so much pressure on people that they feel like they have to go in this exact plan. I mean, I had a friend that he just kind of went through the steps of life. I've had several friends that have done that. They just feel like they go to college and then they get married, and then years later they end up getting divorced because they're not happy. But yet that's what everyone wanted them to do. They wanted them to go through all these steps that led them into an unhappy life. So that's one thing that I feel like is important for younger kids, or anyone that's growing up, even teenagers, young adults, anyone that's anywhere in their life right now, that you need to have goals, but you don't have to have the whole thing planned out.
Yeah, no, that is terrific advice. Um, Dan, for people that want to follow you or find your books, how can they do that?
So all my books are available on Amazon. You can just search for Dane Thomas. There's also a link in my Instagram to my Amazon account. You can buy them at Barnes and Nobles online, or trying to think. I have a
Yeah.
Facebook page, Twitter account. Twitter, I don't really use that much. I get into it there for a little while, a couple weeks, and then I'm like, ignore it for a year. I never got into Twitter. So,
Yeah.
I mean, my most active accounts are Instagram and Facebook, because it kind of got to be a lot when I had like 10 social media accounts. So I
Yeah.
try to focus on a couple. But yeah, my books will always be available on Amazon.
Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. And Dane, I just want to acknowledge you. It's just listening to your story, and especially that time period right before you were writing, going through all those losses and uh breakup and things like that. I'm glad that you didn't give up, and that you saw the light at, at the end of the tunnel, despite, um, all those family and friend losses. And I think you're an inspiration to all of us that like, emotional content and like talking about, feelings and things like that, and seeing, your success with people, uh, in terms of writing poetry about, relationships and things like that, is awesome, at least for me personally. So thank you for doing it, and best of luck with the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.